broke the topic into three main thematic areas.
Okay.
Which is organize, manage, and in times like these.
Organize, manage, and in times like these.
Which is basically the topic.
All right.
But I thought to break it down so that there's a logic to it.
All right. So where are you going to start from?
We'll start from in times like this.
In times like
Especially
this.
considering the conversation you were having earlier.
So what times are we in?
The times we're in, basically, I think to start with, how we run and manage our home has an influence in our lives.
Okay.
Even in the workplace. Because if your house is not organized, it's very likely that your business or your workspace will not be organized. So we need to think through it. It has a ripple effect. And we must make sure that our house, our home is better organized. So times like these. In doing these things, we must recognize the times and the seasons that we're in to start with. What are the times and seasons that we're in? Any business organization, and I'll bring in a lot of business because I think most of us do better at our workplace than we do in our homes.
True.
So we need to. So I'll have a lot of similarities within business and the home.
Okay.
So for example, we have business strategy sessions. Okay, and during business strategy sessions, one of the things we do is to understand what our environment, what's going on within our environment, our space, which is likely to affect our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what are these things within our environment? To begin with, one of the things we're dealing with now is a change in government.
Yes.
Some of us are not thinking about it, but this morning, for example, all the papers, all the news reviews have spent time talking about plagiarism. Now, we will spend the whole week talking about that. We've lost week one.
I hope not. I certainly hope it ends today.
Because the seat of government is still forming, it's still it's going to go through a process of norming, and before we know it, first quarter is over. So most of us are going to have, especially if you're a business owner, which I happen to be now, so I'm thinking, what will happen to my first quarter results? That in itself becomes a challenge. So bring it back home, and you notice that you're going to have to pay attention to your cash inflows and cash outflows because there's a bit of uncertainty. There's hope, yes, but there's also a bit of uncertainty. When will business really start booming, and how do we all tap into it?
So in planning whatever you want to do with your home, you must think of this political context.
It's important.
Interesting.
You don't just think about yourself. The political context is important. Then there's technology, which has become the evil and the blessing of our days. We all love it. I think most of us are not using it well enough because it's a very important tool that we can use to ensure that we run our homes and our businesses effectively. But we're not. But I'll leave it at that.
I know you'll come back to this later on.
The technology bit.
Yeah. My boys, when you give them a phone, they prefer it to reading a book. So now they want a pad to learn with. So I'll ask you questions about that later on.
My daughter tells me, but mommy, it also has learning on it.
I tell you, Charlie. So we'll come back to that. So there's political, there's technology. What else is there? Context.
That's globalization.
Okay.
And all I'll say about that for now is the fact that, especially regarding children, we're just talking about children. Most of us today, our weekend schedules are filled with our children's own schedules.
Yes.
They have the basketball training, then they have music, then they have this, and they have that, then they have that. We can't afford not to give them those. It's no longer extracurricular. It's important that they have those skills.
Okay.
It's critical. So we can't afford not to have it. It also has an impact on our own purse. So not only are you spending the time driving them around, you're also having to pay for it, which has to be factored into your budget.
Playground every time. Pay. Every bouncing castle, you pay something.
You even pay for the nannies, and yet you have to stay there and make sure they don't fall.
I tell you.
So you can't afford not to think through the process of globalization because they need to also compete across globes.
Okay.
So what are they learning? So it also means that you need to even be aware of the curriculum that is being sought in your school, your children's school.
Okay.
And this is it's a lot of work. We'll do it for work or for business, but we don't do it at home. But it's important that we do at home as well. Then all of this, obviously, we have price with volatility, especially in our parts of the world. Every week you go to the market, there's a change in prices. Every week. So even when you work with a budget, so somebody would say, so why should I even work with a budget? Well, it's necessary. That's why we have the miscellaneous components in the budget. So you factor that into your planning. but it's important as well. Then, as a result of all this too, women are working, men are working.
Yep.
So what's happening is that women started working because we're empowered, we're supposed to be out there, we can do better, all of those things. But now we can't afford to even say that it's because of women's empowerment.
Yeah.
We just need, both incomes are necessary to run and manage the home. So we're all out there working. What's happening is that our children are left at the mercy of house helps, if you would, and television, which makes values very important. But today I don't talk about values.
So this is still part of the context. So technology is part of the context. Globalization is part of the context. The cost of living is part of the context. And of course the double income family, the working mother and father. And
the political bit we started with.
Yes, the political is also part. Yes. What else is
economic structure? I think that's one of the other things that's beating us up as Ghanaians that we're not paying attention to. Our system is structured such that majority of us are working from 8 to 5.
Yes.
So it puts a lot of strain on all of us. I remember spending about 3 to 5 hours in traffic every day. You're spending 2 in, 3 out. Sometimes the reverse. If you have meetings, even worse, especially around lunchtime, and your office is in and around the Adabaka Accra area, you are stuck in traffic virtually most of your days. So what do you do with that? It also influences your vehicle maintenance and fuel. We don't have the buses to join where you can abroad, but we don't have those, the luxury of it. So if you're a business person, you can't afford to stop at any given point in time. So you're in a hurry to get there, you need your own vehicle and you go. If you're an entrepreneur, we're still having the light power outages. Import and export policies, people are complaining all over the place. So you need to be mindful of this in developing and managing your own home, or the policies and structures for your home.
Okay.
Then, as Jay Shetty said, he's a motivational philosopher.
Okay.
We are buying things we don't need in an attempt to please people we don't like.
Wow.
I like that because
we're buying things we don't need in an attempt to please people we don't like.
Yes.
Interesting.
And basically what that means is that we are all in a hurry to get something that we're not either ready for or that will make us live outside our means. But we're ready to do so because we need to please other people.
Keep up with the Joneses.
Oh. So we need to begin to have a tougher mind and do better. There are too many people dying today. We just buried someone at 45 just over the weekend. You see a lot of that in the paper today. And it's because majority of us are just stressed. We're too stressed. We are too stressed out. Dr. Hobson says it all the time that majority of sicknesses that go to the hospital has no true causative factor except stress. It all leads back to stress. So most of us are stressed.
Is that what you call this? Is that what we call the microwave economy?
That's what I called it.
Where people are looking for cars, looking for money, trying to succeed at a very fast pace.
Yes.
And it may have a detrimental effect on their physical well-being.
Totally.
That's what we call the microwave economy.
Because we want it fast. But see, microwaves, all those frequencies and energies are detrimental to our health. So that's why I labeled it a microwave economy.
So what are the implications of all of these then?
The implications are that the family structure is compromised.
Okay.
You're not able to satisfy everything that the family wants. For example, you're also having to uncertainty. I mentioned uncertainty earlier is heightened. You're not sure about the school fees, the hospital bills, all these things. How can I keep up? Then there's dissatisfaction. Generally, couples especially are struggling. Once the couples struggle, the home in itself is beginning to break down. So we need to be mindful of that. How do we consciously break down these barriers, if you will, and improve on the quality of our home? So sometimes, even for some of us, we go home and we're on our laptops, we're still on our phones, so there's no family time, there's nothing. We're just going on about a certain routine that means nothing to us. So what it does too is that we go online, everybody's afraid that you're missing something. We're in the information age. What could I possibly be missing? And you're missing nothing. Meanwhile, your children are waiting to have a conversation.
You're connected to the global world but disconnected from your immediate surroundings.
And that's important, though. You cannot be disconnected like that, because they feed you with your emotional support. Your emotional well-being comes from that. But
you made a point in your notes. I thought you should go back to. You said the desired needs of the family become compromised.
Yes.
And you say need versus want becomes key. And you've made an interesting point that this birthday party craze in the schools, where every parent tries to outdo the other, is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, because people are boring to have these parties.
People are boring to have these parties.
They're boring. So if you have a plan, if you have a goal, a clear goal, and you have a budget that you're working with, you will not be swayed into borrowing to have parties for your children at school simply because somebody did it. And the fact that someone did it for their child doesn't necessarily mean you must do same.
But your child, I remember when my son was celebrating his birthday, I had to literally go to the school with my wife and then the other brother and the whole family, because he kept talking about his birthday. He's been talking about his birthday for the past 3 months. He says he wants a Paw Patrol cake. We had to go and look for a Paw Patrol cake and send before we had peace.
Before I had peace.
If you didn't do
how old is your son?
It's 3 and 3.5.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, now this is where you need to, once again, going back to understanding the times and the seasons that you're in. At 3, you can still have a conversation with your child. You did that. It's important to him, so you honored it. I remember we had a project. So during the time of the project, for about 2 birthdays, we brought my son into the picture. He was very young. He was 3.5 or 4 at the time. So we told him that this is what we're doing, and therefore we're not going to do this XYZ, which included birthdays. Now, at age 7, then he comes and says, well, mommy, you said I wasn't going to do XYZ. Now, I haven't done it. So in the last 2 years, I haven't celebrated my birthday. I seem to be like the most boring child in school.
Wow.
Then we also have a cutoff point for birthdays, where after 7 you don't celebrate your birthday.
What kind of rule is that?
You can put that money in a bank account, because a cake, like a very good cake now, costs about 300, 500 cedis.
Yes.
To get a very, like the patrol cake, it will cost about that much.
Yes.
Now for it to that money can go into an investment account for your child. See, if the children understand this and they can see their money grow, their language changes.
So
your thinking changes.
So you negotiated your way out of birthday parties.
Yes. But because there was a benefit, and it was tangible benefits that they could feel and see and appreciate.